When I go back to Jhana Monastery, I'll find out how many are left. Oh, you're going over there? Oh, he's sitting down. Okay, fair enough. Dear Ajahn, what is enlightenment in Theravada Buddhism? In your book, Mindfulness, Bliss and Beyond, in the chapter Hindrances to Meditation, you mentioned when hindrances have been completely abandoned, you're enlightened. Yes. And if you are enlightened, there is no difficulty in getting to jhanas because the obstacles are gone. Yes. I was under the impression one experiences jhana, wisdom and realization arises, which is enlightenment. No. Please clear my doubt. I think that's quite clear, isn't it? But what happens is that for the jhanas, that you do need to also have the insight as well. You need to have the map as well as a flashlight. And with those two together, then there's a good chance that you will get full enlightenment. It's one of the sayings in the Dhammapada that Nati jananga panyasa panya nati ajayato yam hi janang cha panya cha sawe nibbana santike. You all know what that means, don't you? It means there's no jhana without wisdom, there's no wisdom without jhana, and those who have jhana and wisdom, they're in the presence of nibbana. That's really an amazing thing. So you do need the jhanas and some wisdom as well, but you can't have the wisdom without the jhanas, you can't have the jhanas without the wisdom. They come together, and that gets you into being enlightened. But once you're enlightened, you don't pass away. You have all these years you can teach. And then, no, I can't make jokes about enlightenment. I was going to say that when you're fed up with everybody, then you can go and sort of disappear forever. Is that right? No, I can't say things like that. You don't get fed up with people. But what happens is after a while, then when one passes away, you've done your jobs, and then that is called the complete enlightenment with nothing remainder. So it's two enlightenments in the sense of the enlightenment experience of what's happening. And then they have this similarly, it's once you're fully enlightened, then you still, you've got your body and your senses still happening, but then you're like the workman waiting for their wages. In other words, you've done the job, you haven't been paid yet. And that's when you die. You pass away. God forever. And that's easy access to the jhanas. That's somebody who's even a once-returner, not a once-returner, a non-returner. They have easy access into the jhanas. Okay, the only place where one experiences jhanas, wisdom and realization arises, which is enlightenment. It gets very close, but you do need to develop that wisdom, and sometimes that's why we have the teachings of the Buddha to guide us, or some of the teachings of noble beings. Dear Ajahn, what are your thoughts on dementia and meditation? What was that? I forgot what you said. No, dementia and meditation. But I have sort of seen that many times very old monks, which I used to know in Thailand, I never saw any of those monks get dementia, even though they're very, 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 very old. And sometimes what happens is because you are training your mind, you know how to keep the mind clear, and also you know how to practice your mindfulness, real mindfulness, powerful mindfulness. They always say that one of the other meanings of mindfulness, the word mindfulness is sati, one of the other meanings for it in Pali is like memory. And it's a few sayings which the Buddha gives, that anyone who has very strong mindfulness can remember things long, long time ago. The memory is good, simply because their awareness is very strong. But I've also noticed that you do get forgetful if you're tired or if you're just overly busy. And so many people, we just almost like we have a brain, it's got a certain amount of capacity, and we wear it out before we're even that old. So be careful, look after your mind, and then you may be able to remember things. I remember doing a conference on dementia, and when I started hearing what are the signs of dementia. They used to say that it's, you can't remember the past, you can't remember the future, you don't worry about things so much, you live in the present moment. And I thought, oh my goodness, I've been teaching people to be demented. Forget about the past, don't plan for the future, live in the present moment. What's the difference? Of course, there's a big difference there. One is, shows you've got a will. No, not a will, that's the wrong word. You've got the sort of choice. And you decided to stay in the present moment. With dementia, you just don't know. One of the nice things about dementia, which I always thought was very, very Buddhist, was that when I went to go see my mum, when she had dementia the last few years of her life, and when I first went into it had to be a locked ward because she loved walking, and she would just walk all over the place, wouldn't know which way to come home. So anyway, when I went to see her with my brother, the first thing my brother said is, we saw her in the ward, hey, that's not the dress which belongs to her, she's wearing somebody else's dress. Because my brother would get all the stuff for her. And then he sort of checked himself and said, oh, yes, yes. Because when you have dementia, you don't know what's yours and what's other people's. You don't remember who purchased what. So in that dementia ward, they all shared everything. And I thought, that is so cool. If the world was like that, we're all demented, then Mr. Trump wouldn't know what he owned, and the poor peoples wouldn't know what they owned, so we would share things, and it'd be much more fair and reasonable. Don't you think that would be a wonderful idea? Because to have the idea of its mind and personality, you have to have a very strong memory. Anyway, do you believe meditation practice will delay onset of dementia? Yes, I do. Also, where is the mind located in our physical body? It's in your left big toe. You disagree with me? Because it's not located anywhere in your body. It is just, you'd even say it's, maybe to say it's not the same even dimensions as the physical body. The physical world, you might say, is just the space-time, but the mind is something quite different. Have you ever known those experiences, or you may have had them yourselves, when somebody dies and their ghost comes from the other side of the world and speaks with you? It happened very often. There was this, I always tell this story, but it's a good story, a nice story. There's one of the Buddhists, and he went over to Tasmania some years ago, but he used to live very close by to the Nollamala Centre, and he said one night he was staying in a home by himself, and one night, middle of the night, he woke up. Something was up, so he turned on the bedside light, and his mother was at the end of the bed, clear as anything. It's just like, she was actually there. But he knew that she was over in outside of London in Essex, and he knew that she was sick, and he knew that she must have died, and this was the ghost at the end of the bed. But his mother was smiling at him with such kindness and care and compassion, like only mothers can do. And he was smiling back at her in about 5 or 6 minutes, not a short time. And he knew she was dead, her ghost, and it was her just coming to say goodbye. He said it was one of the most wonderful times of his life, seeing his mother one last time. Very, very clear, not sort of wispy, but just like she was really there, standing. And then after 5 or 6 minutes, she just faded away. Because he was English, he did what English people do when these sorts of things happen. He got up and made himself a cup of tea. And at that, the telephone rang. It was his sister back in England. "Pete, I've got some bad news for you." He said, "Yeah, no, Mum's dead." "What? How did you know?" "She's just come to visit me." And it was absolutely true. So down to earth. And a very beautiful experience when somebody who's died a long distance away and they just arrive at the end of your bed. They never said anything because he said he didn't need to talk because he was just bathing in his mother's love for one last time. It was a beautiful experience. So this is actually when you know the mind. Obviously mind traveled. The mind and distance and even time is sometimes a little bit distorted, especially space. How do we get rid of the sneaky kilesas once and for all? Why do you want to get rid of them? You can't get rid of them. Because if you get rid of the sneaky kilesas, you have to get rid of yourself as well. You can't do it. You have to disappear. You have to vanish. And then there's no kilesas left. Where there's a self, there's something belonging to a self. Where there's a you, there's things which you like to protect and own. So the real sneaky kilesas, they're going to go anyway. You don't get rid of them. That's the point. You don't get rid of them. You don't smash them up and bash them up and put pesticide on the kilesas. I don't know why we have this idea that we always have to get rid of stuff we don't like. Get rid of the problems. Get rid of the environmental dangers in society. What are the environmental dangers in society? Us, human beings. So we should spray ourselves. Get rid of the pests. Who are the pests? But obviously there's something very wrong with that. What's wrong with that is the defilements, the kilesas. They're almost like invariable expressions of an individual self which owns things and expresses themselves and gets upset when their ideas of what they want and how things should be done get frustrated. Where there's control, there'll obviously be frustration. And where there's control, there's usually a sense of self behind it. So the sneaky kilesas, once and for all, you get so peaceful, so still, that no kilesas are there when you're in deep meditation. The kilesas are greed, hatred, and delusion, basically. And then there's no greed there, no hatred there, no delusion there in the deep meditations. You're very peaceful. And with a bit of luck, with a bit of good teachings, when you come out afterwards, you can actually see through all of this sneakiness of the sense of a self and a me and a mine. Dear Ajahn Brahm always say that the self is like a minefield. That's one of the reasons why one of my favorite, not cartoons, it was like sketches from the Monty Python series. Remember Monty Python years ago, those of you my age? Now I know how old you are. But no, there was this little comedy sketch of these, I forget who it was probably John Cleese and a few others, all dressed up as Spanish conquistadors, just landing in the New World for the first time. And they met these indigenous people who came up on the shore. And John Cleese, playing sort of whatever it was, and he said, "I claim this land for the King of Spain." And the Indians said, no, land mine. No, King of Spain's land. No, land mine. No, land ours. No, land Mine, said the Indian. Nah. And I think John Cleese says something like, stupid Indians walked forward and got blown up by a landmine. He said, landmine. I tried to warn him. A stupid joke, but I always remember those. Anyway, you mentioned this morning that meditation can clear some illnesses. I'm wondering what stopped Ajahn Chah from clearing and recovering from a stroke or illness. Please kindly advise. You know, some illnesses you can't get rid of, but quite frankly, with Ajahn Chah, and this is my take on what happened. I was there for just 1 or 2 weeks before he got his illness. That the big stroke was he was working incredibly hard, way too much. And this is, I warn you about this, that, with myself or other monks, please, it's nice to have the opportunity to ask questions and have retreats and have you at your house for a blessing. But sometimes you do get tired. And I don't do a fraction of what Ajahn Chah used to do. When he got up in the morning, he'd sometimes go to the morning meeting, do the chanting and some meditation. But then you had the alms round, even before alms round, people would be coming to ask him questions. And then from the time of the meal until just late in the evening, he was sitting under his hut, answering questions from lay people, and even little things like, I say that, I don't know if I told you this one, about this couple who were trying to get some reconciliation when they were going through a divorce. And one of the things they couldn't decide how to share the assets. And they had a whole heap of diamonds. So I just said, let me see those diamonds. They threw them in the forest, or attempted to. No. Only stones. What's the difference between stones and little pebbles? It's only the value which people give to them. That's all. He went to throw them away. But anyway, he was quite sort of different in the way he did things. But he answered amazing questions with similes which you could never forget. Like that time when there was this poor monk, and I still remember his name. His lay name was Gary. And he was in the back of a car with me and this more senior monk who was a translator. In the front seat, the passenger seat of the car was Ajahn Chah, and then there was a Thai driver. And I think we were going to the railway station for some reason or another. And then Ajahn Chah turned around and looked at this Gary, he was a novice monk, and he said something which translated as, "You're thinking of your girlfriend back in LA, aren't you?" And this, when that was translated, this poor Gary, his face dropped, it went red. Because Ajahn Chah could read minds, he just read his mind. He was thinking the wrong things. You should never do things like that when you're in front of a very, very good monk or nun. What are you thinking? But so he read his mind, and it was very embarrassing. And so as a result of that, Ajahn Chah then saw that he was suffering. Ajahn Chah was a very kind monk. So then he said to this Gary, he was a novice monk, and said to Gary, he said, look, if ever that happens again, you miss people you love overseas, especially your girlfriend over in United States, in LA, you can always ask her to send her something of her, something personal. So when you miss her, you can take that out and you don't feel so alone. And they said, is that allowable? Because I heard that before, if you go a long distance away, you can get like a lock of the hair, or a picture, or even a bit of a dress with a scent on, and all sorts of romantic things like that. And I just, oh yes. I was a young monk, I'd only just ordained. I didn't really understand the rules for being a monk. I was just starting out. I thought, wow, this Buddhism really surprises me. And then Ajahn Chah said something else. And the translator took about 5 minutes to stop laughing. before he could actually say what Ajahn Chah suggested. He said, yeah, but don't ask for a lock of her hair or a piece of her dress with a scent on. Ask for something more personal than that. All right, send her a little bottle about this size, and please ask her to put some of her shit inside. And when you miss your girlfriend in LA, take it out, open the tap. And that works for boyfriends as well. If you miss your boyfriend or something, so you can always ask him, can I just have a little bottle of your poo? So when you miss it, oh, I'm glad to get rid of that. Isn't it true that when young people fall in love, they say, I love everything about you, my dear? Everything? Be careful. But anyway, that was Ajahn Chah. We were laughing about that for days. Actually, not for days, for years. Anyway, so Ajahn Chah was just, he really worked very hard. And sometimes people wouldn't leave him alone. And because of that, I think he really worked way too hard, didn't rest enough. And that's one of the reasons. So I have to be careful to make sure. And all of you nuns, be careful. Don't work too hard. Because sometimes there's not enough monks and nuns in this world. So the ones which we have sometimes get overused. I've noticed when we chant, the first lines of each text aren't read aloud except by the lead monk or nun. Is this tradition, or are we just cowards here in the crowd? No, it is actually our tradition, because you've got to know when to start. So, and even if you do like God Save the Queen or something, or Advance Australia Fair, or I don't know what you chant, but anyway, you have to sort of get someone to start it for you, especially when there's no music. So a lot of times what we do when we all chant together, we say like Advance Australia Fair, say, ah. No, that's one of the leaders say, ah, and then Advance Australia Fair or something. That's how we can do the chanting together. But in Thailand, the senior monk or the best chanter would actually get the first line, and everyone would follow on from there. That seemed to work okay. We know sometimes the chanting is difficult. And I remember just the first time we did a big ceremony in Thailand, the Katina ceremony. There's a special chant we do there. And so I remember we were chanting this for days and days and days to make sure it was perfect. And then, when Ajahn Chah came, he led the chanting, and he did the wrong chant. It was his fault. And we didn't know what's going on. And so we were all silent, and he was chanting. It wasn't the proper chant he was chanting something else. And we looked to be fools. We looked as if we didn't know the chant, and Ajahn Chah did. And we couldn't actually say that Ajahn Chah made a mistake, not us. That's one of the benefits of leading the chanting. You're always right. And the ones who follow are the ones who don't know it. Anyway, that's sort of the tradition, yeah. Dear Ajahn Donut. Who's that? Is the Vinaya identical for bhikkhu and bhikkhunis? No, it's not. We share many of the rules, many of the important rules together, but there's other rules which we don't share together. And in fact, the bhikkhunis have more rules than the monks have. You have 311, we only have 227. Now, how do you feel about that? Do you think that's really unfair? Why give more rules to the nuns? One of the answers is, if you ever notice, you have like 5 precepts is where you start from, and then 8 precepts is higher. And higher than 8 precepts is 10 precepts. The more precepts you are, the higher you are. So you see, they're sitting in higher seats than I am. Why? Because they keep more precepts. Isn't that the case? No, it's just different precepts, because many of those precepts were started because of events which happened. It wasn't a case of just, we have so many precepts the same or different, but many of those precepts, they just evolved. But one of the favourite precept which the nuns have, which we don't have as monks, I really think this is unfair, because the story behind it was one of my favourite stories from the Bhikkhuni Vinaya. Yes, few of you know what I'm going to say. It was the 8th Pajitya rule in the Bhikkhuni Patimokkha. And in that 8th Pajitya rule, they always have a story where it came from, why they had this rule. And there was one of the nuns who were staying in the monastery just on the edge of town, that they had the job every morning of getting up and actually getting the buckets, from the toilets, what was deposited the night before, and actually taking them and carrying them to basically the cesspit or whatever it was, where all that stuff went in. Because they didn't have proper sanitation in those days. So one morning, the nun who was responsible for this got the couple of buckets, whatever it was. But it's a long way to the usual pit where you deposit, what happened the night before, number 1 to number 2s. And so instead, it was early in the morning, so she just walked to the monastery wall, and she just threw it over the wall. I'm not making this up. You can get out of it. You've read it, you know that. That's true, isn't it, Venerable Prasada? That's what happened, yeah. So they threw it over the monastery wall. It's early in the morning, no one will be there. But you've got one of the rules which applies to both the monks and the nuns, and it's called Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law is, in the West, we say, if it can happen, it does happen. And it did happen. There was a gentleman who was on his way to the palace to negotiate a business contract with the king. And of course, he was really well dressed and well sort of groomed. And he was walking, imagine, early in the morning, walking down the road next to the monastery, and you're thinking about the contract, and suddenly, from over the wall comes a big bucket of poo. It goes right on your head. He lost his mindfulness. They're not sneaky collations, the real big ones came in. What is on the other side of the wall? This is supposed to be nuns. These aren't nuns. No nuns do things like this. This is a terrible place. And so they always have these little lights along the path, and they're just like firebrands. I think what they usually use some tar or something, and they light it and they can find their way. So he took one of those, and he was going into the nuns' monastery, determined to burn down the monastery. These aren't real nuns. Look what they've done to me. And so when it went into the gate, the guardsman there, the doorkeeper, took one look at him. Well, what's happened to you? Look! Those nuns, what they did to me is terrible. And then the person who was the gatekeeper there said, wow, that was done by nuns? Yeah. That is auspicious. That is really lucky. Those are really good nuns in there, really holy nuns. Wow. Now, sometimes you get blessed with water, but you've been blessed with the real thing. Wow. And the gatekeeper said, look, just go back home, clean up, and when you go back to the palace, you'll have really good luck today, guaranteed. Really? Said the businessman. Yeah, give it a try. So this businessman was so gullible that he believed that. So he went back home, cleaned up, changed his clothes, and when he went to the palace to see the king, he actually got a very good contract. He was really making his business. You know what business people are like? Once they have a good bit of luck like that, they always go and tell their friends. How come you got such a good contract? He said, listen, if you really want to do well in business, Forget about the monks. Go to the nuns' monastery and get some real holy water. And of course, that got around town. And then eventually the Buddha heard it. And then he said, come over here, nuns. You were very lucky that you had a smart-talking gatekeeper who convinced this businessman that it was very lucky what you did to them. But don't try it ever again. And the 8th Pachitya rule for bhikkhunis is any nun who throws a bucket of poo over the monastery wall has to confess the offense of Pachitya. Don't ever do that again. We don't have that rule. So be careful when you walk past the monastery wall. And what I said, is that pretty accurate, Venables? Yeah. When I read that, I burst out laughing and thought, wow, people think all these Buddhism, the scriptures and the rules are always very boring. They're very funny sometimes. Anyway, oh boy. There is growing momentum and research evidence supporting the use of psychedelic compounds in addressing mental health issues and for the betterment of well people. In my limited experiences, these compounds can produce higher states of consciousness and insights similar to those described in deep meditation. Is it appropriate to use of these compounds congruent with the precepts about mind-altering substances? Thanks. And oh yeah, you have 8 cushions. A record. Now I can actually see. Which one is it? The one with the 8 cushions. I never took sort of such psychedelic compounds. I did see a few of my friends who took some. Actually, most of them were fine, except some of them who started getting to that early on in their life. They just experimented once or twice. Even that guy who was the head actuary, basically the head special accountant in the whole of Europe. I remember being with him when he took some LSD. There's many things I can't say about what he did. Otherwise, he'd lose. He's probably retired now. He's retired anyway. But anyway, the experiences which I saw in them, they were not necessary at all. And sometimes, now for most people anyway, you thought of that was a little bit of a sidestep. You thought of it as going to be like a quick way, but usually had many problems associated with it. But that's not to say that people who have illnesses, and of course the research can be there with people with illnesses, that some of these substances, they can be of assistance to you. And I know that there's somebody recently started the cannabis political party.
Yeah.
Over in, what's it called again, this cannabis party?
Something about making cannabis legal, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. But anyway, he was elected, and I don't know if you know, but he's our local doctor.
Excuse.
Sorry?
Excuse.
Yeah. But he's also, he became a senator. He never thought he'd win with such a few votes, but because of preferences and stuff. But he's our local doctor, but not just our local doctor. He's a Buddhist. He comes here every now and again. He has been on retreats, weekend retreats. He gets a bit busy. But also that he was a very interesting doctor because I'll make the connection in a few minutes. There was this woman called Anita Murajani, and she was it was in Hong Kong. She was Indian by birth, but she had all these terrible, terrible cancers. Not just one, but many. And they tried everything to try and cure her, but the last time she was in the hospital having an operation, and she died. And then she came back again. And she recovered, she opened her eyes. And she was the one who said that when she went out of her body, she went up to the light, and she went right into that. She called it like a union with God. You call it whatever you like, but I recognize that as a first jhana experience, or what she described it as. And then when she came out, she came back with the insight special to her. The reason for her cancers, there was, and this is important for each one of you, was that she was trying all her life to please other people, to live up to other people's expectations. And even though she was successful in her own career in her life, that stress which she had, trying to meet other people's expectations, was the main cause of her cancer. And as soon as she realized that, it was just a realization, that was all. She also knew that that was the end of her cancer. And so when she came back, the first thing which she said once she was conscious, she said, "The cancer's gone. I'm cured." And then the doctors thought she was crazy just because of the operation and still affected by the anesthetics. But then she said, "No, I'm cured now. The cancer will go." And it did go. And that's why, she wrote books about her experience and went on TV and stuff. But her doctor, her GP, when she was over in Hong Kong, was John Walker. No, not John, it's Brian Walker. Sorry, John Walker's something else. I admit it. But anyway, Brian Walker, our local doctor, he said the experience of actually seeing that for himself, the experience of Anita Murajani, just changed the whole way he looked at medicine. And he became a Buddhist. And he was championing so the use of some of these, for him, weird substances like cannabis, for many diseases. Fascinating just how things connect together. And when he became our local doctor, and he was also had this history about seeing somebody leave their body and come back again when they shouldn't. That was really amazing. Anyway, okay, that's the best I can say on that one. But the deep meditation is something more powerful. And of course, I can't really say from personal experience because I haven't used any of those psychedelic substances. Even when I was young, the main reason why I don't know, sometimes life is very complex, but one of the reasons I thought I never took those drugs, one of my friends took drugs when we were at school, and then his mother and father found out. And then he said, I remember being on a bus on the way home, and he was saying his life at home was a real big mess. And then at that time, my father was still alive, but he was very sick. He was dying. And he died a few months afterwards. And I made this choice. I said, if I take just ordinary cannabis, all the other kids at that age were taking it. I said, if my father finds out, that would kill him. That was really true. And I just couldn't do that because, you loved your father and you knew what it would do to him. And then later on, after my father died, when I went to university, by that time I was getting into Buddhism. And the teachers said, no, you don't need to take any drugs. And I didn't. So it was really weird in the sense that while all your peers at that time were just experimenting, for me I said I didn't want to. I like to experiment with Buddhism. And early on in my life as a monk, life as a Buddhist, as a meditator, even when I was still a layperson, I got some amazing meditation experiences. And that proved to me you don't need it. At least I didn't need it. So I was very fortunate. Anyway, I'm just sharing with you. Dear Ajahn Brahm, is willpower same as strong faith? What is the difference? In Chinese Mahayana tradition, there's a strong faith in Amitabha Pure Land. What happens to the wills of those individuals? This is one of the problems with faith. You don't know what you're having faith in. It can be very strong faith. Because you don't know, it's a bit of a chance. What are you going to have faith in? That's one of the reasons why it's always best to balance your faith with experience. In other words, be willing to challenge everything. And if other people sort of discourage you from challenging everything, then of course, why? Everything has to be challenged. Maybe it was because I was a scientist in theoretical physics that there were some things in there which at first were just illogical. The little things like Schrodinger's cat experiment. I love this experiment. It was only a thought experiment. No one ever did it because that was just really cruel to a cat. But Erwin Schrödinger said, he's one of the founders of theoretical physics, quantum physics, said if you take a cat and put it in a box and seal it up, enough air and stuff in there, so, it's quite happy in there. But you also put in that box a cyanide capsule. And it will break after maybe, say, 30 minutes with a 50% chance of breaking, 50% chance of still being intact. And according to just the decay of, say, a cesium atom. So it's a very simple experiment to do. It's not simple for the cat. But then he said, when, after 15 minutes, or even half an hour, is that cat alive or is that cat dead? When you haven't opened the box yet to look. It's in the box, it's got a 50% chance of being alive or being dead. Which one is it? And the answer is, and this is pure quantum physics, no one has managed to find an argument to confound this, that cat is neither alive or dead. It's in a third state. Now that is illogical. That doesn't make any sense. But that's how things are. It's true. What is happening is our ideas of the world are wrong. And we have to just expand that, the way of looking at the world, to see it's totally different. So as our wisdom needs to be expanded. That's the problem. And so it's the same with faith. Sometimes strong faith is not strong enough. It misses too much. I think in our world how many good people do bad things because of strong faith. So let's always be careful of faith. So that's one of the reasons why. But you say like Amitabha or Kuan Yin, Amitabha Pure Land, you may have lots of faith in that, but I could never have faith in that. Because the idea of Amitabha, number one, it came a long time after Buddha Gautama, and it was saying that if you keep chanting Amitabha's name, then when you die, it doesn't matter what you do in life, when you die, then you'll be reborn in this Pure Land. And then the description of the Pure Land was that whatever you want, you get straight away. Whatever food you like, you just think about it and you get it. Whatever music you like, you get it straight away. Everything, all your sense desires are fulfilled. And then Amitabha's there as well. Don't know what he's doing there, or she, or it, whatever it is, because Buddhas aren't sort of gender specific. Not in that type of state. And then you get reborn with Amitabha when he gets reborn in this world and get enlightened with him. That's a bit too easy. You're indulging in the pleasures and getting enlightened at the same time. Makes no sense. But anyway, if the people are chanting, as long as they're practicing properly, in other words, they're keeping precepts, they're being kind, they're being gentle, they're practicing some meditation, then that, of course, is a positive step towards realization. As the Buddha once said, this was in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, somebody came up to him and asked a wonderful question, says, people in other religions, can they get enlightened too? In other paths, other faiths? Well, the Buddha answered, it wasn't just trying to be smart, it was very meaningful. He said, if anywhere you practice the Eightfold Path, then you'll find enlightened beings. Doesn't matter what you call it. You can call it Pure Land Buddhism, you can call it followers of the Great White Goat, or whatever. You just make up some names. But it's not the name of the religion or what you believe in as much as what you do, how you practice. That's the most important. That's an incredibly powerful statement. As long as there's the Eightfold Path there, then there'll be enlightenment, no matter what you call it. Anyway, dear Ajahn Brahm, could you please recommend a chant to learn to help lessen the 5 hindrances? I do the chant of the Triple Gem of Metta most days. Also, it is okay to chant the Devas in my home. If so, what is a good chant to learn for that? Thank you for Meditation Mountain. It's very helpful. What you chant? So, if you want the... No, I was going to tell a joke. Whatever you chant, make sure it's simple. You don't get rid of the 5 hindrances by chanting. That sometimes, I think I did mention this, that the one thing which the monks are very good at is the chant to get rid of ghosts. We're really good at that. And one of the reasons for that is because when we go to a person's house and there is a real ghost there, we start our chanting. The chanting is so out of key and out of tune and harmony. The poor old ghost can't stand it and runs away. And with the chanting of the nuns, that's too beautiful. So don't ask the nuns to go to your house if you want to get rid of a ghost. The ghost will invite more of their friends over. Hey, come listen to this is really nice. So, to help lessen the 5 hindrances, I don't know one. We don't usually do chants to get rid of the 5 hindrances. The day was in my home. For the day was in the home, you do some suttas. Because many of those heavenly beings heard those before. They recognize them. When they hear them, wow. It's like some of their favorite... sometimes, I'm not allowed to listen to music, but sometimes you go to funerals. And at funerals, they often play the favorite music of the person who just passed away. And at my age now, many of the people who passed away were my generation. So sometimes you even get those songs like My Generation by The Who. Or you get some of these other sort of music which I had when I was young. But for the devas, heavenly beings, some of those who were Buddhists would actually recognize the chanting, which was chanted by the Buddhist monks in their presence years ago, centuries ago. They recognize that, and so they will come. This morning I saw the most beautiful creature, a stick insect shaped like a series of gum leaves, green and about 6 inches long. Truly wondrous. I crouched down to watch it and then left it to do my walking meditation. I thought it was so beautiful and vulnerable, and I wanted to protect it. When I got back to the same place again, a magpie was beating it against the ground, breaking its body apart. I guess I should feel mudita for the magpie. It was a joyous find. That's one of the hard things to take in life. Sometimes you see some really beautiful parts of nature, but of course that part of nature is sometimes some animals will actually eat the other animal. And I remember so often seeing in Thailand, you have these, after a rain, many of the worms would come out from the ground, and the ants would come, and especially the type of ants called the mot lin, which would bite you and sting you. And they would come and attack that little worm, and eventually to sting it to death and eat it. And because you've been stung by even one of those ants, when I was walking, it really hurt. You felt so much compassion for these worms. So I remember a couple of times I rescued a couple of them, shook all the ants off, and put it in a nice, safe place. Then I thought, what am I doing? Because that means the ants don't have any food that day. It was like a moral dilemma. And after a while, you just how to leave it alone and not interfere. It was part of life. And life in some realms of existence is very tough. And you felt so privileged to be a human being who didn't need to kill others to survive yourself. There's a sort of wonderful reflection there. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful things, but sometimes the other animals destroy it. But I remember just also over in Bodhinyana Monastery, we used to have some kookaburras over there. But the kookaburras, they just eat animals, other smaller animals, worms and stuff. And they do the same thing. Once they catch something, they hit it against a tree to kill it. So I remember seeing that some of these kookaburras, we were kind to them. We didn't sort of hurt them or anything. So some of those kookaburras would come at our lunchtime. If they saw anything they liked, then they swooped down and take it from a person's plate. I remember once that they swooped down, they took a chicken leg from somebody's plate. Swooped down, they got the chicken leg. But what they did next, they took this chicken leg and bashed it against a tree and bashed it against a tree until there was no meat left on there. All the meat had gone down. And that was actually the magpies. They were the smart ones. They were down below. And this poor old magpie just had a chicken bone in the end. Not the magpie, the kookaburra had a chicken bone. He had to kill the chicken bone, the chicken first of all, before he would eat it. Anyway, if we are to settle into the peace inside, obviously many of our troubles are gone. In all relationship, communication is important to understand one another. In something sort of misunderstanding of conflict to find resolution of a Buddhist just let go and forgive. Process alone within themselves will also communicate to better understand one another moving forward, each one impressing their needs and perspectives. It's, sometimes when you are living with somebody else, it's just like the magpie and the kookaburra. Sometimes you understand one another. The magpie always gets a nice meal when the kookaburra does all the work. But no, it's just, we find that our world outside will never be perfect. The relationship you have with another person will never be perfect. And the nice Buddhist way is to realize that from the very beginning. There's two different people. You may think you're soulmates, you may have even lived together in the previous life, but still you have differences. And to accommodate those differences, and maybe even not just even talking about them, because it's sometimes so hard to find the language and the time and the people in the right mood to be able to talk together. So it's one of the reasons why I think even in a household, if you can have time to come on retreat, time to be by yourself, time to be able to reflect and not always be with the other person, and sometimes to learn how to love the person at a distance. And little by little, you find in solitude, and just like the solitude of being on a retreat here, you find just how you can go back and have a wonderful relationship with the people you live with, a much better one. You don't solve many of those problems when you're right in front of them. You stand back, understand and learn. It's not just all the stuff which I say, or stuff which you read. It's just all the stuff which actually comes up into your mind when you are here. It's a peaceful place. You have many hours by yourself. And in those hours when you are here, you can understand the other people you live with. They may be male or female, but basically they're all the same. Human beings are trying to do their very best, caring, but sometimes don't know how to do it. One of the things for a relationship, please always allow your partner to make mistakes. And always forgive them. One of the best stories of that is a couple who, quite a few years ago, that she was, just taking his clothes to the dry cleaner and found a little receipt in her husband's jacket. It was to a brothel. She saw that. Confronted her husband, "You've been going to visit prostitutes?" "Oh yeah, only just once or twice." And of course, she was so upset and angry, she wanted to divorce him. And he said, "No, look, I still love you. I won't do it again. It was just, I don't know why I did that." And then, so they came to see me, and over about an hour and a half talking to the both of them. He was very, very sorry about what he'd done. And he promised her in front of me he would never do it again. And he even bowed to the Buddha statue and promised he would never do it again. And she was just so upset, she really wanted the divorce. And so what we decided on, after a long period of consultation, she couldn't forgive him, but what she could do was put him on what we call parole. He said for 6 months, she would have access to all of his phones, all the passwords. And if he hid any of those, that was it. It would be a divorce. And he'd always tell her where he was. Always be really kind to her. And it actually worked. She forgave him. And he never did that again. And they're obviously a very close couple now. And they've been coming to Bodhinyana Monastery. I won't say which day of the week it is, otherwise you'll try and find out who it is. And they have a wonderful relationship now. They really respect the monks for actually keeping them together. He did a terrible thing. But, he really was sorry. And he meant it. She gave him another chance. She's got a wonderful relationship with him now. And she deserves it. So sometimes when you forgive somebody, you can't sometimes just forgive them. Put them on parole. And then after a while, see if they live up to it. Okay, yeah, that's up. What is enlightenment? Thank you. Can you turn the lights off for a moment? Now turn them on again. And that's enlightenment. No, you don't need to. So what is enlightenment? It is like many descriptions, and you eventually come to see what that enlightenment is. Remember I said that story about what you aspire for in life, either power to get what you want whenever you want it, or like freedom from desire, peace. And the enlightenment is actually learning what peace is, stillness, contentment. And the great thing is you don't need anything for that. After a while, you're so still and peaceful, there's no desires left. Have you ever had those experiences? When you, say, been here, or somewhere else in this world, by yourself, you've got a free hour or somewhere, and you're sitting in a beautiful place. It's not just exquisite, but isn't it calming, safe? And for those few minutes, you've got nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing is missing. You don't want anyone in the world. And if they came, you'd be happy to see them, but you don't want anything. You're sitting there not wanting anything in the whole world, totally at peace. That's a feeling of enlightenment. A feeling of not needing any desire because you don't want anything. That's beautiful. As a Buddhist monk, we're trying to, and nun as well, trying to encourage learning how to have few things. What do you want as a Buddhist monk? Sometimes people say that. They come up to me after the retreat. "Oh, thank you so much, Ajahn Brahm. I'd like to get you something. What do you want?" We say that. I don't know. Nothing. So if you really want to give me a gift, get a nice box. Put a nice wrapping around it. Put a label on it to Ajahn Brahm. Thanks for all the wonderful things you did on this retreat. But keep the box empty. You give me what I always really wanted in life. Nothing. There was one of the people over here. Oh, it was the day before Valentine's Day. And he told his wife, he said, darling, what do you want for Valentine's Day? You know, business is good. I can get you something. What would you really want? He said, oh, nothing, I've got you, that's enough. And he'd been married for long enough to know that's not what she meant. Oh, come on, what can I get you, something special for Valentine's Day? You know, it's coming up soon, isn't it? February the 14th. Anyway, what can I get you? And she said, diamonds. Something with diamonds in. Anything with diamonds in. And he looked at her and smiled. Okay, darling. And the following day, Valentine's Day, she received this beautiful present, a little box, all wrapped up very nicely. And when she opened it, she found inside was a brand new pack of playing cards. It had 13 diamonds in it. Okay, when I watch my breath, I can feel it in the body. After some time, it calms itself down, and then it disappears or comes very faint, that I can hardly feel it. It hasn't yet transferred to the mind, as you mentioned in this morning's talk, so I don't feel the delightful breath or the lights. Why is it not happening? It's because you want it to happen. Be patient. And don't think it's your breath, it's just the breath. And every breath is different. So watch it with more mindfulness, more contentment, being more happy to be here, not wanting anything in the whole world. Whenever I feel like that, you just not want anything in the whole world. You've got a day off. You've got many days off. The retreat hasn't finished yet. You don't have to attain anything. Look, how many days? It's a week, isn't it, already? A week you've been here. Has anything happened yet? Nah. So it's not going to happen, so give up. Come on. You're hopeless. Come admit it. Be honest. And then when you stop trying, then amazing things happen. I don't know how many times you keep telling people this, stop trying, stop aiming for something. Don't think, oh, nothing's happening yet. It's not supposed to happen. When things don't happen, you don't want anything in the whole world, then it's amazing what occurs. Deep gratitude for all your time and energy. It's not my time, it's not my energy. You feed me, so I'm just giving back. When you speak about romantic relationships, you say to think as we, which I totally agree with. Same as at work and in friendships, unified caring for one another. Loving kindness by nature. I feel this way. Caring, giving. I wonder though about the tendency to overgive, to lose one's own needs being met by constantly thinking of giving to others. How to strike a balance? But never think of yourself as different. When you're giving to others, you're one of those others. You're included. So as you give to others, you give to yourself. As you give to yourself, so you give to others. So don't think you're somehow different. And learn how to give to one another and care for one another. At the recent Satipatthana workshop at Dhammaloka, we examined the various forms of the Satipatthana Sutta and extracted what would be an original Satipatthana Sutta. This looked more like a prerequisite to Jhana as concluded by the scholar monks amongst us. How does this fit with your explanation this morning? Pretty much the same. But you have to weaken the 5 hindrances. You don't overcome them before you do Satipatthana, you weaken them. And when you weaken them, mostly through things like sense restraint, keeping precepts and stuff, and then you can actually do the Satipatthana, and then you can get into the deep jhanas. I totally agree with you. Dear Ajahn Brahm, I found walking meditation calm my mind faster than sitting meditation. Great, do more walking. And after a while, you really get tired of walking, then you can sit. And then actually you get, what works for you in walking meditation, you can actually transpose to how you do sitting meditation, and the sitting meditation improves. And then the sitting meditation becomes better than the walking meditation, then you do more walking meditation. So the both of them work together. I am so grateful to be here. That's just as well because you are here. Your retreat is full of kindness. Relax to the max. I am more aware now to rest. Be still and let go. With metta, P.S. Love the lollies. So you're having a wonderful time here, and you go home with lots of peace and lots of diabetes. No, don't be afraid. Over the years, 37 plus, you've become kinder, softer, and more tolerant. Ajahn Brahm and Ajahn Chah were much tougher on their pupils. Were they? How many of you know those? Ajahn Chah was incredibly soft. And sometimes some of the things he did, I expected him to be tough, but he was always very kind. With marathon meditation and Dhamma talk sessions. Yeah, sometimes, but they were kind as well. The monks of Bodhinyana are spoiled with comfort. And metta. Cream puff namby-pamby monks. I can't say that. That's what it says here. There's a bit in there. Because that is, I was told off by LGBTQIA+. Sometimes there are some words which, of course I was never involved in any gay LGBTQIA+ rights. Only later on in life I do remember just coming here, going to give a talk, and this person came in afterwards and says, very nice talk, Ajahn Brahm. He said he was a leader of the gay community here in Perth. And he said religion has always been very cruel to gay people. And I repeated that many times because he said it with such pain. And that really hurt me. I thought, this guy was really suffering, and religion was blamed for it, and it probably was quite true. And so I made a vow even there that anything I could do to help, I'll be there for you. And it did happen once that there was a Buddhist leader, it was actually the Dalai Lama. He was quoted in the Daily Telegraph in London as saying, you cannot be gay and be Buddhist, period. That's what the Dalai Lama said. Apparently he was misquoted. But anyway, when I saw that, I got lots of letters from some of the gay community in our BSWA. They said, is this really true? They said, we've been all our lives. We thought, somewhere, some spirituality will accept us, and we thought that was Buddhism. And so I wrote a letter to the West Australian. It was published in the letters page, and saying, I really respect the Dalai Lama, but he was wrong there. You can be a gay and you can be Buddhist. And just, the door of our heart is open to everybody. And as a result of saying that, publicly, I got my invitation to the gay and lesbian Mardi Gras breakfast. I was very proud of that. I'm not gay. That was when Giz Watson was there then, she was the leader, and I remember she telling me, she said, these days the gay and lesbian Mardi Gras is not interesting anymore because no one objects to them these days. Before it was just really exciting, and now it's just ordinary over here in Perth. But I thought that if you have a voice, please shout out for people who really deserve a bit more fairness in their life and kindness. And so we did that, and it was marvelous. So anyway, but then I was also said, don't use the word cream puff and namby-pamby, because that is a term of abuse for the LGBTQIA plus community. You catch more bees with honey than vinegar, hooray, of course. But if I become, sometimes you learn that the kindness is by far the best path for meditation and for just having a good community. Years and years ago, that when, this place over here, when we started meditation retreats, we'd have one person, their job was to get up early, go around all the rooms ringing the bell at 4 o'clock whenever we decided. That's a stupid thing to do. You want to retreat, and sometimes what happened was, that I knew that bell was going to happen at 4 o'clock, and I thought, I'd better go to bed now, otherwise I'll be tired when the 4 o'clock bell comes. And I missed so many really nice meditations in the evening, because I thought I'd better go to bed. And instead now, you just, if you're having a good meditation, carry on. 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, it doesn't matter. You can always sleep in the morning. And that was encouraging much better, high-quality meditation. So when I imposed that, no bells, that's actually what that word, have you ever heard that word before? No bell silence? That means no bells. And you know that what happens, if you have no bell silence, many more meditators win the Nobel Peace Prize. Oh, come on. It's getting late. You know who I am. So, okay. Oh, yeah. That you missed the best part of the Gatikara Sutta yesterday. It was actually a few days ago now. The two friends, both bearing their final bodies, meeting for the last time. Those Gatikara Sutta, where the Buddha remembered his previous life as a monk under Kassapa the Buddha, and his friend was the chief disciple, chief lay disciple of Kassapa the Buddha, Gatikara. And they both came together, Gati at the Buddha's, he'd just been enlightened. And Gatikara and the Buddha, they said, well done, Jotipala, we were friends from the same village before, disciples of Kassapa the Buddha. You became a monk with him. I was a non-returner. I couldn't become a monk because I had to look after my parents. Now this is our last body. I, as a non-returner, am going to die in this realm. And you're the Buddha now, you're going to pass away. This is our last bodies. Two friends meeting one another after many thousands of years. And that's absolutely true, that's a wonderful, like the warmth of people practicing. Go different paths and they meet one another later. Oh, now I understand the meaning of anicca, the anicca of the cockatoos in Jhana Grove. Their noise took me to the deep silence, peace and stillness. Now I am missing it. What happened to those cockatoos? The cockatoos in Jhana Grove, they keep coming every now and again, then they go away again. They actually sort of migrate. They come in when there's something to eat. There's still a lot of red cockatoos around, aren't there? Nicholas?
There's a few like that.
A few, yeah. But and then they disappear for a while and they come back again. They're beautiful little birds. They're very rare too. In your books and talks, the way I understand it is that we should listen to our feelings. The emotions, whatever they may be, are natural. For sure we cultivate peace and indeed it grows, yet it can be a winding path. From experience and from other teachings, it is recommended to allow these emotions to move through. Like grief, it can be bypassed. What is your perspective on allowing ourselves to feel it, to heal it, expressing these, then settle into peace? Or should we just always be peaceful? It is, there's two types of emotions, the positive emotions and the negative emotions. There's many of those emotions like inspiration, like joy, like even laughter. That's why I tell jokes, because sometimes you can be quite serious, and that doesn't really become a good teaching tool. There comes a time when people get a bit bored and they want to have a bit of inspiration. I got this idea from a Tibetan monk who many years ago, a lot of years ago, he said that when he gives a talk, when he tells a joke and people start laughing, that's the time their mouths are open and he can put the pill of the Dhamma in. I thought it was a wonderful little metaphor, because when you're seeing a funny story, you get some more awareness. Otherwise, in your talk, people fall asleep. It's also one of the reasons we've always noticed that when I give a talk, I'm always looking at you, making sure, and that's a scan from left to right, because I want to know whether what I'm saying is actually working or not. If you've got your head down like this, because you're counting the minutes, when is this going to be over? It's not really a good talk. You're going through the motions, but you're not really connecting with anybody. And connecting with a funny story can be very powerful. So the negative emotions, greed, hatred and delusion, wanting stuff, even grief. Grief is not a natural emotion. We think it is. But in the northeast of Thailand, I spent 9 years up there and didn't see people have grief. Weird. I knew what grief was, but it wasn't there. All those years, only once I saw somebody just cry, but only a tiny bit. You saw them the following day, the following weeks, months, years. Loss, they knew, but grief just wasn't there. That is an emotion which our culture really encourages. Isn't it sad? I saw that I was on a retreat, one range retreat. When I came out, it was a nice retreat, really peaceful, having a wonderful time, big smile on my face, and they said, oh, isn't it sad? I said, what? Princess Diana died. I said, well, are you related to her? No, but isn't it sad? Why? People die. And that was all built up by the media. And people who didn't even know her got sad and grief-stricken. Was that really helpful? So I challenged all of that. And after a while, you know the story, at the end of a life, because this is what happened when my father died. Oh, I'm going to be late again. Okay. Next time I'm going to get you to answer these, because I take too long. But no, I'll answer them if you wish. That when my father died, only 16 at the time, I never had any grief at all. It's weird. I never cried, never felt sad, even though I loved the man very much. He's the one who taught me, may the door of your heart always be open. He was a great, great father. How come I never had grief for him? It was only years afterwards. It was a simile of the end of a concert. I loved music, lots of rock music in those days. I saw the Rolling Stones when I was only 11. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't like girls. They were shouting and screaming, oh, Mick, I love you, Mick. I came there to listen to the music. I couldn't hear anything except screams. I soon forgave the girls. But anyway, at the end of every concert I went to, you'd stand up, clap, shout for more, the encore. And after the encore had been played, and the band had to go home. I had to go another direction. And you knew that many of those great musicians, great bands, orchestras, you'd never hear them again. The concert was over. But once the concert was over, Never once did I cry when I went out that concert hall into the London, cold, rainy London night. Instead, I felt so privileged. How lucky I was to have been there at the time. Marvelous concert. That's how I felt when my father died. No grief. What a wonderful performance that was. Thank you, Dad. I wouldn't have missed that for the world. I never thought what had been taken away. I only thought what I was given. 16 years with a good man. How lucky I was. That's the opposite of grief. Appreciation. Much better. Can't you elaborate how to open the door of your heart? It's very easy. You go to maybe Sir Charles Gardner or hospital, and you get a nice surgeon, and he will open your heart for you. It costs a bit of money, but I mean, it's... That's one of the reasons why this is no joke, that once over in Adelaide, they were looking for a copy of my book in a big bookstore. And of course you go into, the religious section or whatever. It wasn't there. So they checked in the counter, and they said, no, have you got Opening the Door of Your Heart by Ajahn Brahm? I said, oh yeah, we got that in here. It's not in the shelves. They said, oh, you'll find it under medicine. And that's where it had been put by mistake. Under the medical section. So sometimes I make mistakes. Okay, just one more question quickly. How do you open the door of your heart? Mention that many times, you just do it. What is the definition of the mind? I've been saying that all week. Initially, I opened to all 5 senses of mind during meditation. I found that my mind was quite restless. Currently, I deliberately focus on breathing, and it helped. When you said in talk, all 5 senses calm down and only left with the mind, I was wondering if it happens naturally. Yes. Or when we feel free, our calm, then we choose to focus on watching our mind. No. You don't choose, it just happens naturally. There's nothing to experience. That's why we keep these places nice and simple. What have you got to see in this room? Nothing, it's pretty boring. Nothing much here. So, the sense of sight? Nah. The sound? Nah, nothing really happening. The sense of smell? Nah. Nothing really interesting to smell. Sense of taste? Nah, you're not eating anything here now, I hope. Sometimes I wonder what happens when I close my eyes and do the meditation. You've got a biscuit in there. So nothing to taste, so that sense, close it down. Feeling, get yourself nice and comfortable, not too hot, not too cold. And it's just everything, the feeling is okay. So there's nothing to really experience, is there? Why can't you just let the 5 senses just disappear? The hardest part of those 5 senses to disappear is the thinking about the 5 senses. They call it karma vitaka. The K long A-M-A. Nothing to do with karma, but the law of karma. We think about the 5 senses. Our world of the 5 senses. Our relations, our loved ones, our kids, our food, all the things back home, all your responsibilities and duties. We think about them too much. When we stop thinking about them, we stop actually experiencing them, the 5 senses vanish. Ah, isn't that nice? Free. And then the mind is there. What is the monkey mind? The monkey mind is the minds of monkeys. Okay, honestly, this will be the last story. And then we just do the other ones tomorrow. This was Vesak Day, big Buddhist ceremony in Sri Lanka, in a big Buddhist temple there many years ago. And when it's a big Buddhist ceremony, there's lots of food around. And so people put it down and they drop it and all sorts of stuff. So it's really a beautiful festival day for all the animals as well. So one of the monkeys had gone to the temple there on Vesak Day hoping to find a mango or banana or something somewhere, someone left. And as he was there, he was listening to the monk give the talk, on the Wesak Day talk, on the monkey mind. And he was a monkey who listened to this. He thought, this is really interesting. We didn't realize that these priests in Sri Lanka talk about us. So he listened. You know what the priest said, this Sri Lankan monk said? He said, monkey mind is a bad mind. Monkey mind is you've got to train that to make sure it doesn't happen. Monkey mind, it just stops you, getting peace in meditation. A monkey mind is bad. And this monkey heard that and he said, he's got no right to say this. What about monkey rights? He's defaming us. What does he know? I'm going to find a lawyer. I'm going to sue this monk, demeaning monkeys. We've got monkey mind. What's wrong with that? We've got human rights. I'm going to complain to the World Wildlife Fund. I'm going to get somebody to help out. I'm going to get Richard Attenborough, what his name is, to come and sort of fight our case for us. Monkey minds are great. So he swung back into the clearing in the forest where his tribe of mother monkeys, troop of monkeys lived. He said, you wouldn't believe what these priests say about us. We've got monkey minds, and monkey minds are bad. This is terrible. We should do something about this. This is not right. We're going to do something. We can't just let this happen. This is our modern world. Animals have got rights as well. No, you can't say this. And they got everybody really excited. They're all jumping up and down. They had the head of the tribe, this old monkey, very wise. He said, that monk was right. See you all jumping around. You can't be still for a moment. That is the monkey mind. And the monkey said, oh yeah, you're right. We're monkeys. I suppose we have to have monkey minds. What hope is there for us? And they were all very sad. But the head monkey, very old, said, there is a way to overcome the monkey mind. We've got to meditate. Yeah, let's meditate. We'll all meditate. What a great way of overcoming the monkey mind. Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, good idea. Let's do it. And after they stopped jumping up and down again, yeah, but how do we meditate? Oh, first thing you've got to do, get a nice cushion, a nice zafu. Yeah, let's get a zafu. We'll all get a zafu. Where do we get zafus from? So in the forest, there's lots of grass and leaves. So yeah, let's get that. So they all got grass and leaves from the forest. They made nice little zafus for themselves. Yeah, what do we do next? What do we do next? The next, you've got to sit on it. Oh, okay. So they sat on those zafus. So well, now what do we do? Now, what you do is you put your right paw over the left paw, your thumbs little touching, your back straight, chin down, close your eyes. Yes, what next? And then watch your breath. And for the first time ever, probably in Sri Lanka, a group of monkeys were quiet. Only for 1 minute. And then one of the monkeys put their hand up. Bop. I've been thinking. Don't you remember we'd all agreed to go to the banana plantation to get bananas for lunch? I said, oh, yeah. I was thinking that. Someone else said, yeah, me too. Why don't we just go to the banana plantation first, steal all the we won't eat them yet because it's not lunchtime. We'll steal the bananas, we put them in a big heap in the middle of the clearing, and then we can meditate with that. We don't need to think about it then. Good idea. So they all got off from their zafus, they swung over to the banana plantation, they stole lots and lots of bananas, and they put them in a big heap in the middle of the clearing. And then they all went to their zafus. They sat down and put the right paw over the left paw, the back straight, so the chin down, closed their eyes and started breathing in. Breathe. Excuse me, said another monkey. I've been thinking. I've been thinking, before we eat those bananas, we have to peel them first. I've been thinking about it. It's been bothering me. Let's get that out of the way and do that first. We won't eat them yet. So, oh yeah, good idea. I was thinking about that too. So they all got off their zafus, they peeled all those bananas, they didn't eat anything yet, they put it in a big heap, and then they went back to their cushions, crossed their legs, right paw over the left paw, thumbs touching, back straight and started meditating, breathing in. Excuse me! Said on the mic, what now? You know, I've been thinking. Before we eat those bananas, we've got to put them in our mouth first. That's true, isn't it? You can't argue about that. So let's put them in our mouth. Once we put them, we won't eat them yet. It's not the right time. We'll put them in our mouth, and then we can meditate. We won't have to think about anything then. That's a really wise idea. So they all got up there, put bananas in their mouth, and then they all went back to their cushions, sat down, and closed their eyes. Did they watch the breath? They all chewed and ate those bananas. And once they've eaten the bananas, then they swung away to do something else. That is a monkey mind. Nothing about thinking too much. Everything about, I'll get this out of the way first, and then I'll meditate. That's a lovely aspect on the monkey mind. That's sometimes what you do. I'll do this first of all, and just get this done, and then I can sit down and, oh yeah, but there's something else I have to do first, and something else I have to do first. And that means you never meditate. That is the monkey mind. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, sorry I took so much time again. There's only a couple of questions left. 1, 2, 3, 4. Anyway, we'll do those ones tomorrow, maybe. But we'll get sleep out of the way first, and then we'll do that. Okay, thank you. Okay. Which do you want, the rubbish ones or the good ones? Okay, very good, okay.